Well, welcome to the Church Office podcast.
My name's Gavin Smith, and if you're joining us on video, then here's a little wave.
We're excited to have Nigel Ring join us.
I've never actually heard the word wicked and accountant put in the same sentence.
Well, hello and welcome to the Church Office podcast. My name is Gavin Smith, and it's a joy to welcome you today. Thanks for listening in to this church administration podcast. We love everything that happens behind the scenes in churches and love to get different speakers on and guests on. And today we've got Jonathan Carswell from 10ofthose. Mate, thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure. Love it. Really glad to be here.
It's great to do it. And we recently had 10ofthose come and visit our church, bring a bookstall. They had a huge range of resources and we absolutely loved it. And as administrator and operations guys and girls, we probably come across 10ofthose. I know you've been to a number of conferences and working. So Jonathan, it's a pleasure to kind of chat to you more and really keen to kind of find out a little bit about how 10ofthose started and just hear a bit about your heart. So tell us where you're based, because you're not living in the UK at the minute, are you?
Yeah, so I live in Chicago, so in the States, and I'm really trying to champion in 10ofthose USA and get that up and off the ground. We moved here 4 years ago, right before COVID, which was an interesting period. Trying to launch a ministry that revolves around events and going places. Previously, well, I'm from Yorkshire, a place called Leeds, and then was a youth pastor in Northern Ireland for 3 years, and that's where 10ofthose started actually. So we're a Northern Irish company, believe it or not. So
I love that, mate. And you were up in Durham University, is that right? Am I?
I was.
What did you study back there?
Oh, it was a tea and cakes course. It was just a course to get me in. I did. It was a youth and social work course, but it was an excuse to be able to get to university, really. And they don't do it anymore. And just a very quick story. At the end of my first term, I was called in by my tutor, saying, "Oh, Jonathan, can you just go through what your A-level results were?" And I read them back to him, and he was like, "Yeah, that's what we've got here. We should never have accepted you." But he said, "Keep your head down, and we won't say anything." And it was actually quite a good thing. I don't know whether they did it deliberately, but yes, I just then kept my head down, and it was a great training ground for me to learn lots and lots of things and make lots of mistakes, whether it be with the Christian Union or working on local radio or in the newspaper, those sorts of things. And very grateful for those 3 years, really.
Grand. Now, I read on your website that 10ofthose started in your bedroom as a bit of a hobby. So how did you get this idea of, kind of pulling together resources and serving the church in this way? Give us a bit of background.
So I'd been selling books at university for the Christian Union, and I had a sister who worked for a Christian publishing house, so was able to get some deals and these sorts of things. Then when I was a youth pastor in Northern Ireland, wanted a hobby, but wanted it, I was playing football and things already, but wanted it to be of value, but something separate from my work. And the original sort of idea was, if I could buy large volumes of good content, maybe I could influence the bestsellers. And I was doing it in a way that was legit, rather than perhaps what we've heard recently of authors trying to buy their books to do it. But I was trying to buy it so that these books would then go to the top of the bestsellers list, and hopefully would influence publishers with them seeing, oh, these titles by this author are selling well. So that was the original idea. And so I bought 3 books by Vaughan Roberts, and I bought 1,000 of each of them, I think it was, and I sold them in 10s. You had to buy 10 at a time. That's where the name 10ofthose comes from. And they were all gone by the end of the week. And people then started saying, "Oh, well, could you get Vaughan's other book by another publisher?" And then it began to grow. And then probably sort of 9-12 months later, I was getting too many pallets delivered to the church, and I had to make a choice what I was going to do. And so I decided at the end of that year I'd leave and do 10ofthose full time. And it was a rocky path, I tell you. But God just opened some doors at just the right time. We began starting doing conferences for churches and and then also things like the EMA pastors conference, etc. We started doing, and that was. But what we're all about really is handpicking the best books from across the publishers. So we're a place that you can trust in terms of what we sell. We know it holds to the Bible, and we know it points to Jesus. We discount it so that more can go out. We really, I wouldn't be doing this if in this model if it was selling chocolate or whatever, but we fundamentally believe that the books are of value, so we want as many to go out, and then we use our profits to support missions for those who otherwise couldn't afford it. So that's kind of our core of what we're about.
And so how did you develop business from where you were? Kind of you move out of the church, you hire a kind of warehouse, and you just begin to do this on a day-to-day basis?
I think I just kind of muddled along, and I feel like I've always done that. And church administrators perhaps see this, that kind of where they are now looks very different from 5 years ago. And had you asked them 5 years ago to make this transition, it would feel too big. But you just make these little steps as they come along, and that's really what we did. So the first step was renting some space. So I found some cheap space to put it in, and I was handwriting labels, and my handwriting's terrible anyway. And then before long, you move to an automatic thing, so you can print the labels, etc., etc. But it did just develop over time. Word got out. When we first started, there weren't quite the strict data protection rules, so I just emailed everybody I could get and just blasted them. And it then just began to grow and develop. I think providing bookstores for churches and conferences was a major thing of taking the next step forward, because we've never really spent any money on marketing. Our marketing is the word of mouth that comes from people seeing what we do, telling their friends, which means it's been a slower work, but I believe a deeper work, in that it's not an advert that somebody sees and then forgets. It's a friend saying, you should try these guys out, and that's just a lot longer lasting. But I moved from Northern Ireland to Leyland in Lancashire, got a little space. That space we then filled and got the next step. It was just lots of little steps. And I think that's how the Christian life is. But it's also how Christian ministry is often as well. It's pretty rare that, astronomical growth happens in one or two steps. It's often lots of little steps. Also try to bring round a really excellent team. I don't agree with everything he stands for, but many years ago I read Richard Branson's autobiography. One of the things he says in there is, bring on board excellent people who can do better than you can. So whether it be accounts or marketing or IT, I've just always tried to bring in excellent people to take us to a place that I just couldn't take us, and that's been good advice.
I love that advice. And as administrators, that's true for us, isn't it? We spin lots of plates, and it's lovely to kind of hand a plate over to somebody who gets what you want to do, or in a particular area, and takes it on and just grows it in a bigger way, and you kind of celebrate grace in that, and love that. So
and I think pastors should be looking for guys and girls who can come in and take off them often what they're not very good at, and that person can do it brilliantly because that's their skill. And this is, I believe, how the body of Christ should be working. There are certain things that the hand can't do, but the foot can do really well. Well, who is that foot to come in and I think administrators, executive pastors, however you want to call them, are often these excellent people who can be doing work that the pastor can't, which then allows the pastor to do the preaching or the pastoral care that perhaps somebody else can't.
No, you're absolutely right. I read something the other day, something on my board saying just how amazing church administrators are, that they kind of promote unity in the church. They can accelerate mission, they can enhance leadership, they can enhance what our pastor's doing, and just by taking on some of the practical administrative tasks that seem to bog down elders sometimes, or leaders sometimes. And And yeah, if you're listening to this as a church leader and you're thinking, I need some help, then finding someone in this kind of practical gift of administration who can really show a little bit of leadership in the church can really make a huge difference. And finding someone's sweet spot and finding excellent people is a key skill, isn't it, in leadership? And I think you're absolutely right there. Yeah. So 10 of those is sort of it's growing rapidly, I guess. You're in America now and launching what is 10 of those USA. Have you deliberately wanted to get involved in that starting?
Yes. So we as we grew, I mean, there's our main areas of work really are individuals, so buying on the website, of course, helping churches with kind of church accounts. We call them PCAs, premium church accounts, where churches are perhaps buying regularly, and because we are picking the best from across the publishers, it's a one-stop shop. So discounts, invoice rather than paying up for all these sorts of things, conferences, and then publishing. We do some publishing, particularly around accessible, shorter books, evangelistic books, those sorts of things. And so we were doing that in the UK, and it begins to get global once you start publishing. And so America was always kind of a question in our mind because it's a massive market.
Yeah.
But we didn't just want to go there because, well, it's a big market, let's tap into it. We're a business, but we're in business to do ministry. So we want the business side of things to be run well, and we need to stay afloat in order to do the ministry. And I think that's probably a similar sort of thing for those who are in the administration side of a church. You need to run it in some ways like a business. It needs to be well organized. You need to pay your rent, you need to pay your bills, etc. But we are a ministry, so there's sometimes decisions that we make that are terrible business decisions but great ministry decisions, and but we need to make good business decisions in order to still be able to make ministry decisions. So for the US, we were looking at it, and they have lots of resources, but that's part of their problem. So much of it is terrible. So, you only need a little bit of poison and it will kill you. And they have a lot of poison over here. And so we wanted to champion the whole of the church family reading quality books, not just the senior leadership, which often is the way. Senior leadership read good stuff. Church family are reading trash. So how can we get them to be all reading good stuff? Evangelism is often non-existent in the churches over here because it's still seen as a sort of very Christian nation. There's a lot of what I call churchianity. You join the tennis club, you join the Rotary Club, and you join a church. They're the things you do, the clubs that you join. And so helping churches think evangelistically was a major reason for why we'd come. And then the third one, and we make no bones about this, is we want a wealthy American church, maybe even without realizing, to subsidize ministry across the world for those who otherwise couldn't afford it. So they're the three reasons we're in the States. I'm here to kind of champion it and lead it, and long term, hopefully pass it on to somebody who could then from here who could run it. But that's why we're here. So.
I love it, and just what comes shining through from you is your heart for the gospel, your heart to build resources, not just for leaders and those working in that, in churches, but the broader church to be able to kind of, access, good, cheap materials. And that was one of the highlights for us, this last couple of weekends when we've had you down, was that we knew everything on the table was just going to be good and healthy. We're not having to go through and check everything. The leaders are not having to read every book and then pass it on, but we're able to go, do you know what, go and check out the kids section. There's loads of stuff there. Go and check out this section on marriage, and you're going to find 4 or 5 really good titles that people have done. So you guys are doing a good job in that, and just really serving churches. And one story we had a kids staff kind of volunteer thing last night. And I think there was about 70 volunteers who serve in our kids ministry, all came together, and we had desserts and a bit of training and visiting. And there was this guy who stood up and sort of started the meeting, just one of our volunteers called Andy. And he picked up a book off the 10 of those site, 5 for £5 thing.
Yeah.
Amazing with God.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah.
And just a kids focus book. It's a shorter version of a bigger book. And he just came away saying absolutely buzzing with the kind of 5 points of Kevin DeYoung, I think, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah. So he goes through 5 points of how we reach the next generation for Christ. Grab them with passion, win them with love, hold them with holiness, challenge them with truth, and amaze them with God. Yeah, it's brilliant.
And he was so affected by it. And he only picked up the book last week. And then he comes to the meeting, he's like, this is what this is about. And he just inspires everyone, encourages everyone, just reminds everyone. And you kind of follow that line back to the fact is that, we spoke to Geraldine, we spoke to your team, we booked you guys, you came and delivered a load of books. And then this is a kind of spiritual effect it's having on our church. Because all this comes together and serves the church, and I love that, and I just think what you guys are doing out there to serve churches is amazing. So
that is such encouragement. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, that is exactly what the outcome of what we're seeking to do is, that we hope we'll see. We're doing this because we care, hopefully as much as pastors and staff on and church family care about the spiritual health of your church family. There are lots of places you can buy Christian books these days, but I hope that when you buy from 10 of those, we're providing you with resources because we care for the spiritual health of your church. It's why we carefully pick. It's why we price stuff that is just a silly price. 5 for £5. Nobody's making any money really on those things, but what I would say, for churches perhaps thinking, oh, well, how would this work for us? Please get in touch, because we don't have a one size fits all, because every church family is different. But there are lessons that we've learned along the way, like what you've just had with your leader of actually a short book for volunteers is going to be a bit more helpful than a 200-page, please invest 20 hours into this book. We're saying invest an hour. And you can get something that's going to help shape how you're doing your youth ministry. And church administrators or volunteers, whoever is listening, if we can help your church by resourcing them, by being creative of the price we charge or whatever, get in touch. We want to help because we care for the spiritual health of your church.
Yeah, absolutely right. And I think we're planning. We're a slightly bigger church. We're planning to have you guys twice a year, and would love to see that happen on a regular basis. And you're right. I know of other churches who've got sort of 50 people in who access your website. And one lady was saying to me, we got this Christmas book that we wanted to give away this year at Christmas, and they got it from your site, and it was just easily available. It was delivered on time, and those things go and make a difference, don't they? And so full marks to you, and it's
well,
great.
praise the Lord. It's this is all about getting a good team on, because I couldn't get things out on time, so bringing other people on who can is really important.
There's 5 people who could do it better. That is a great lesson. So for churches who haven't heard of you, 10ofthose.com. You've got a whole range of stuff on there. Fill us in on how they can connect with you and work with you.
Yeah, so there's a few different things. Obviously, visit our website, 10ofthose.com, and be in touch with us. Maybe you have your own church bookstore that you need supplies for. Well, get in touch, because like I said earlier, we're selling from across the publishers. It means that you've got a one-stop shop rather than having to buy from 3 or 4 different places. And talk to us about the premium church account, which means you get extra discount, you get special promotions, you get review copies, and you get things on invoice. You can do sale or return, these sorts of things. One of the things that we offer, though, is a customized online store for your church. So let's say your church is St. John's. You can have 10ofthose.com/St. John's, and then a homepage which is specifically curated by you. So let's say you're preaching through Luke's Gospel. Okay, well, here are the top 7 books on Luke's Gospel, and we're doing a summer biography read. Well, here are 25 options of biographies, or we have something on grief. Okay, well, here's a scroller on grief. So you can pick your homepage, but people get the full access to the store as well. And then everything anybody buys, you get a kickback financially for the church as well. What it means, though, is you as church leaders can with confidence tell people to go to the church bookstore site and pick up such and such a book, which perhaps you quoted from or you want them to read. But you know that they're not one click away from heresy. If they visit another site, that can often be the case. And we have to take this seriously because, as I said earlier, one drop of poison in their spiritual diet can kill them. We know it as a family. I know somebody who read a particular author, and as a result, they're just spiritually nowhere because they took on that poison and it killed them. And so we need to take it seriously as church leaders that, okay, there are other sites that are perhaps more convenient, which will deliver maybe a tiny little bit quicker or whatever. But if they're going to be killed in the process, it's not worth it. I think price-wise, you're not going to find it cheaper elsewhere, and the money that is generated is going to support other ministries. So you're almost tithing as you shop with us. But I would say one other thing: talk to us about how we can serve your specific needs. Maybe you've got leaders who need a specific thing, or they need the ebook rather than the physical book, or you need it at a price because you're in a low income area. Well, just talk to us because we want to make it work, and that's where we'll make good ministry decisions. And we're okay if that is a bad business decision. We'll take care of that in other ways, but please be in touch. I often talk with our team and say, the answer is yes. Now let's work out how we can provide it. So that's our approach. We want to be can-do. We want to be flexible. We want to do it well, but we do want to meet the needs of every individual church.
Right, Jonathan, I love that. Love your heart, and let's click into this. Church administrators, if you're listening and you haven't got a site set up with 10 of those, then go ahead and build one. I don't think we have, so maybe I should get on that and feed it back into the podcast.
There's no cost. We do it for free. These visits that we talked about, coming to bring a pop-up bookstore for either a Sunday service or maybe have a women's conference or a church weekend away. We'll come to those as well. Again, no cost. If nobody buys anything, well, that's okay because the Americans are subsidizing it. That's the approach. So all of these things, we want to be as helpful and as flexible as we can be.
Yeah, that's great. So get in contact with the team there at 10 of those and see how they can connect. And if you're a church leader listening to this and you've not heard of them, then please connect into them and, get some resources. So I love some of your evangelistic ones. What are some of your recommend us a couple of books here on evangelism, because we want to take this gospel out there, don't we? That's what we're about. And so throw me a couple if you've got some.
So one on evangelism for the church family to think about. There's a book called Intentional by Paul Williams, where he's looking at how it is that each of our conversations can take people to Jesus, take people to the Bible, and take people to the cross. Cool. It's a small book. It's published as part of the Union series, so Michael Reeves and others, but it's called Intentional. There's another one, it's by my dad, but it's good despite that. It's called Evangelistic Living, which is looking at sort of everyday evangelism, how we're always just this close from being able to speak the gospel. In terms of evangelistic books, two things I'd say is, if people plan to use them, so have them by your front door so that when the Domino's man rings the doorbell, you've got something ready to give him. But then, maybe your car or your handbag or wherever, have stuff ready. And then give out liberally. I view these as scattering seeds. Well, some seed will fall on hard soil, but some might produce fruit. And I just think, let's think mass. So church leaders, we're perhaps good at doing this for Christmas and Easter as well, but What about Mothering Sunday? What about graduation? What about school leavers? What about school starters? All these sorts of things. We can make many, many occasions. I don't know when this is going to go out, but the coronation is 2 or 3 weeks away in the UK. Okay, whether you like King Charles or not, it's an opportunity to point to the king. So we've produced something called God Save the King, which gives you a little bit of historical information about the coronation of the royal family, but it talks about the king who became a savior. And there's a little £1 book. Well, could you give one to everybody in your neighborhood? We do a magazine called The Life Magazine, which comes out twice a year. It's evangelistic, fairly low level, so it has things like good recipes, money saving tips, but then I'll have an interview or a testimony, an article, and you can get these customized with your church's details delivered to everybody in your postcode area for, I think, about 24p each. Well, you could do 5,000 twice a year if you plan and budget, etc. These sorts of things.
Mate, so many ideas there to follow up.
Sorry, I go for it when I see them. But again, I love it. I would say, maybe a church administrator's thinking, oh, well, that kind of, I wonder, I'd like a bit more information, or how would that work for us in this? Please just call us. I mean, I'll gladly give out my email. It's Jonathan, I like to say spelt the Bible way, Jonathan at 10ofthose.com. Drop me a line. Let's talk some ideas. Gladly give 20 minutes to seeing what we could do specifically for your church. Very.
I love that. I'm just thinking, if you're a pastor listening to this and you're thinking 5,000 things going out to a local neighborhood, how do I coordinate that? Well, church administrators, we can be involved in that. Like that's where we cook, and love and get involved in. And again, I love that. We were talking earlier about the combination of the gifts, and we can. Love that. So this, mate,
and we can do the distribution for you. We can have it delivered to those doors without any volunteer needed or anything like that. So talk to us about how we can help with that. Yeah.
Brilliant, mate. Well, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for jumping on the podcast. And it's, for me, I just love hearing the story behind how everything started. Love, want to connect with people and say, mate, your heart for the gospel, your heart for the church, your resource church. I love the fact that you're using money from America to subsidize everyone else. Like, there's just some really good stuff in there. So please connect into 10 of those and find out more about them and how they can serve your church. The invite is there. So, take them up on that kind offer. So Jonathan, thank you.
Listeners, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Oh, mate, it's great. Listeners, if you've got any questions for Jonathan or me or the church office, if you think there are topics or resources that we can signpost you to, please get in contact with us. We'd love to be able to serve you in that way. You can go to questions@thechurchoffice.co.uk. Check out the website for lots of up-to-date new resources that are coming on. There's articles to encourage you. And I think this is like 50-something podcast. So loads of topics for you to connect in, from finance to safeguarding to recruiting to thinking about volunteer management. There's a whole range of things. So please check out. All right, mate. Thanks for your time. We'll see you again on the podcast.
God bless you.